Hello, everybody, and welcome to OpenExO Live. Really great to be with you this evening. And this evening, well, for me, it might be day for you. We have Thor, who's coming in from Israel originally. Well, he lives in Finland, but is in Israel at the moment. And you can see there's some amazing people coming up in the coming weeks. And we also still have some open slots. So if you are interested in being on OpenExO Live, do head over to the marketplace where you can apply to be on the show, where you can share your EXO story. And before we get Thor up on stage, I do just have two messages from the community. The first one comes from Shiraz, and he says, Thorsten is a very knowledgeable and great guy to work with. I found him flexible and accommodating while working with the team in different time zones. He's thorough and has a great eye for detail. And then from Beatrice, reliable, effective, and forward-looking. These are the three adjectives that describe Thorsten's mindset and attitude to work. I had the opportunity to meet Thorsten through the certification programs, thus supporting each other on this exponential journey. Through our collaboration, he demonstrated to be a doer and capable of achieving any task with resourcefulness, insights, and dedication. Besides, he engages in projects and undertakes activities to grow and enrich our EXO community. Thorsten is supportive, available, and trusted team player, and not surprisingly reflected also in his ambitious MTP. I am glad to have been part of the same team, and I'm pretty sure Thorsten will soon become an EXO leader capable of creating means for unparalleled abundance, well-being, and healing to complete the world for a better future. And so with that, I am going to welcome up Thorsten here on screen. How are you doing this evening for you?
Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, doing great. Hectic week, but it's cool that this one can fit in, and glad to be here.
Awesome. And so I always start off by asking the person that I'm chatting to give a bit of a background about yourself. Tell us a little bit of your background, what you've done, and then how you came to actually join the OpenExO community.
Yeah, well, background is very volatile. So I've been tapping into legal, into commercial, or how you want to say it, and into technology. So I was over time able to combine that and position myself as a one-stop advisor for business, to have all these components 360 degrees to help everything for a client. And that being said, it's mainly strategy, business development, growth management, and that is of course already the bridge to the EXO, because we're talking growth management. That's eventually how I searched for something to evolve, to see what's out there, what's going on, what's new. And I found initially just the book, and said, oh, this is pretty cool. And I checked out, and then was discovered, wow, this is so much bigger than just the book, and I studied, I said, the foundations, go for it. And then we had some certifications here and there, and still missing the trainer for the sprints, but that was just due to time reasons and the restraints. But that's pretty much it. So that was a bingo moment, and I added it, and customers benefit from it.
Absolutely. And so of course, one of the important aspects of an exponential organization, a requirement is an MTP. And can you share a little bit about your MTP?
Yeah, well, first of all, this was talking business, but also personally growing into a certain direction. So I actually go on 2 MTPs. And if you stay first with business, it's like transforming organizations for sustainable, I have it still in brackets, exponential growth and scaling, and in our area of warp speed technological evolution. So there's so many things which need to be taken into account, and this summarizes it pretty well. Going personal, it's not that exponential, but it's creating a future of unparalleled healing and well-being. So what does it mean? I have at some point also, like I got involved in X, so I got, let's say, maybe dragged or interested in something what is probably called sound healing or frequency healing, this kind of subtle energies which the Chinese, the Indians, the Tibetans have used for years, and there's actually a lot of science behind it, and I got really into it and did my first steps actually, and so that's the second part, creating a future of unparalleled healing and well-being, if possible globally, of course. And that's something what is not recognized with the establishment, but it will be. There's a lot of things you can help people with.
Yeah, and I mean that personal MTP, I think resonates with perhaps a fair amount of people within the community. Have you found community members that are like, hey, that's something that we're also doing, or we're also interested in terms of
not that much yet. It's limited. And that's my bad timing wise, because I've had, let's say, to keep best afloat or optimal afloat during the pandemics, I had lots of clients jumping off or just going out of business, and then you have to do the extra mile, which is time, to balance it. So I think now that we are getting into a more charted waters again, so it will be easier to be more active again on our platform and the community. And dig into that, because so far we have some groups, exponential.world, for example, looking into such, but on the EXO side, yeah. And I myself, as an ambassador, I felt like okay, setting up NordicExo.com to channel it, and start to relay the good message as it is. But yes, it's definitely, I wouldn't call it bucket list, but in the near future, I expect more interaction again.
Awesome. That's really great. And beforehand, we were speaking a little bit around foresight and the importance of foresight and how that links to the EXO model, the EXO thinking. What would you say is really important about that, about having foresight for organizations?
Yeah, foresight is of course a function or capacity in an organization which simplified looks into the future, what will be going on. So you can, with some work and some automation these days, you can find what is called a weak signal. Some things that are coming, that are emerging. And it's very early. You can predict, will it be a trend, will it be a mega trend, and the like. And we can relate this functionality, for example, with the 6 Ds, when it's a weak signal and deceptive, and then it starts to be too late when you start to look into it when it's mainstream. So this is like a very good connection, and it's something what could help to make let's say foresight activities more popular, for preparing organizations for the future and for what's going on. The problem with foresight is a mindset problem, because people or organizations associated still with risk management, which is true, but risk management is something really unpopular, because the main thought is it can't be what shouldn't be. So let's push it away, you know. And then maximum is you have some minimum thing, but you don't really care about it, and that's a risk in itself. But this EXO framework and the description of how it all happens, the 6Ds, that's exactly a very good interlink to foresight and related activities. Specifically, you look at accelerating technologies, you see something is coming up. Some years back, 3D printing, my God, yeah, cool, you know, but now it's there. Everything is there. Flying taxis being piloted in East Germany somewhere, I read. It's all there. It's not science fiction anymore. So it's really fast, and you need to see the weak signals and the emerging trends and be ready. So this goes really like a glove on each other, as I see it. I mean, there's probably not everything black and white, but that's pretty much what I added.
No, absolutely. And in terms of exponential technologies, of course, I mean, we often speak about, you know, the fact that it's at the convergence of many of the technologies that you can see, you know, you can see major benefit. But the organization, of course, you know, needs to be structured in a way and have a mindset that can then leverage that, right? Which of course is you know what, you know, MTP plus scale plus ideas is all about, right? It's about how do we set up, you know, the organization. And so what would you say, you know, were the greatest learnings having gone through, you know, some of the certification programs? What were the greatest learnings?
The learnings is that this was the connection to foresight, for example. So it enabled in a way to streamline or perfect the offering of what is growth management, or even scaling for a company, because that goes also hand in hand. Exponential growth is in a way scaling. And also the fact that many organizations just don't see it that way yet. So I face some sort of inertia in the market, you know, some hesitancy maybe. And the learning is that this is an add-on which alone has its challenges, because many say, oh, we do this already, which they don't, but you can't say it to their face, you know, to work around it. So, and then foresight and the like, business development, growth management, they have their challenges too. Like growth management, you talk, they will say, oh yeah, it's like marketing. Yes, marketing is a part, it intersects with it, but it's not growth management per se, you know. You see a lot of times it's equal, but it's not. So the EXO and other elements I mentioned, like foresight, they complete each other in a way, and that will make it for all of us. And I will be happy to share and talk with anybody who wants how we can make a shield or a package around it that's more understandable, and it can be benefit, and we can enter let's say markets easier and overcome this chasm or inertia. I call it inertia because it's like very, very static in some segments still. Less in high tech, but the more traditional you go, the more you will face let's stay with exoterms, the immune system.
Yeah, no, I mean 100%, you know, correct there. And you know, in terms of actually, you know, working with organizations and you know, helping them to, you know, to leverage exponential mindset and exponential thinking, you know, there's obviously a number of different ways that different community members are doing this. We of course have tools from, you know, from our end, from OpenExO, whether it's, you know, sprints or swarms or workshops, and you know, those are all tools. But people are leveraging those tools, but then also looking at different ways, or looking at specific attributes as potentially, you know, the go-to strategy. You know, for example, you know, people might be speaking to a client about data activation, right? So it's more about the data side of things, which is really looking at the algorithms attributes, and then potentially, drive from there. Is there any particular attribute that you think, you feel sort of is a great way to to actually start a conversation around EXO?
Yeah, I find, for example, data very interesting. And if you go data and data visualization, you come to dashboards, which is, I think I once put it in one of the courses I took, certifications. I dubbed it as the underestimated attribute. Yes, it's data, and data is everywhere, and but you still have to make sure it's actual data, not stale. And showing an Excel sheet or talking numbers is not as exciting as you put it into visualization and dashboards. And dashboards have the advantage of being real time, so you can actually motivate the organization. Say, look what's going on, and oh, look what we need to do. And if you really use it in a proper way, it's a very powerful tool, or attribute in this case.
Yeah, I mean 100%. So many people think that a massive dashboard with many things, it might look cool, and you might have a room with this massive TV that shows you all these stats, but that's not very useful in terms of decision making, right? You want your dashboard to be showing you potentially the exceptions and the things that you need to take immediate action on. I mean, just like we do with our car.
Also the human factor, like the sales department closed this deal. Oh, this is nice to see. It's like cash flow. It's yes. Somebody gets a bang, 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 and so that's for the organization, for the groups, also very good.
No, absolutely. And so you currently are in Israel, but obviously from Finland. You there for a short while. Do you want to share a little bit about how it's been?
It's what I mainly do is, because it has a very vibrant startup community. I work a lot with startups, but and some academics. But the idea here is to do some tech scouting. So I have some mandates also. So that's the connection to it. It can go both directions, because Israel is a very small market, so they all want to go out. And yes. Everybody probably knows, lots of them go to America straight away, NASDAQ, blah, 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 and then it's far away. It's a challenge. So there are these kind of groups who say, well, listen, Europe is closer. It has a easier footprint. And you have in Scandinavia specifically very early adapters for technology. The Baltic countries are like the best example. They're just south of Finland. The e-government, you do your text declaration, 10-15 minutes on the internet. That's it. Just as an example, which is very cool, because it doesn't get easier the more south you go. so that's something like this. It's very, very interesting. And what I can say is that in many cases, what the media shows and what the reality is here, it's a big difference. It's a bit sad to see, but that's the way the world goes. And so let's see what stays at hand this trip.
Okay, that's really exciting. And back in Finland, as you said, I mean, you do a fair amount of work in the startup space. And how do you sort of share the EXO thinking in that space? It's usually there. People, it's quite intuitive for someone starting an organization. But do you see people struggling to understand it, or is it generally something that is very clear for people?
It's partially clear, at least when you take the attributes apart and see them as single functionalities. They do.
Yes.
I had some who just say all we need is lean startup, which yes, it's related, but it's not directly a part of it. I have provided some workshops for incubators, accelerators, because there they come and listen to it, and then get excited. So it's like a primer. I feel that's a good way to do it if somebody else is thinking about it in their regions. Accelerator might be more receptive than incubator because they're really at the beginning. They have no plans and no management, so it might be a bit too early. And in some cases, those in accelerator or even beyond, having some revenues, they are more receptive. But starting with a workshop is usually very good, especially if you don't do the full 2-day or 1-day template we have, but reduce it to half a day and maybe have a one-on-one session with each after it, to fill the day, but to see really that it's personalized. Well,
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
What I've done in the past is, and that when I had time, that people found quite valuable is mapping a current state, EXO canvas, then looking at their business model canvas, and then mapping a wanted state EXO canvas, and then but pointing that back to the business model canvas, right? To show how by leveraging these attributes, you can then, so we're going to use interfaces, and the interfaces are going to be with our key partners, but we're also going to have interfaces for our customer segments, and this is what they can look like. And then and sort of showing that out and showing people, okay, this is more about, yes, some of the stuff we are doing, but by actually mapping it, you're ensuring you are doing it, as opposed to relying on a hope that you're going to do it, right?
Absolutely makes complete sense. And when it gets to business model, that is sometimes the Achilles heel for many companies. They have a business model, but it's not, let's say, as I would say or saw, not optimized, and it's not really for scaling like exponential. So that's also some part to pinpoint and suggest, listen, there's something we can do.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. And so with that, Thor, the time has run away. And so I always ask people as we end off, just, what is that one thing that you want to share with folks as we end off the call today?
Yeah, but one thing is, of course, thinking that there's a research that came, the EXO framework methodology. So it will be interesting to see how dynamic is it, how much will change of the MTP scale ideas, or will it stay like this, or what comes on top? Is there something arising? We'll see. It will be interesting. I do not believe it's static and will hold itself as is for another 5 to 10 years. But it's what I want to maybe share at the end. It's very good to take this methodology and model and combine it or merge it with what you are doing, like I've done with Foresight, which makes it far more exciting for the client to see, oh, what is so much more? I didn't know Foresight is about this, Yeah, well, it's some add-on, and it's a really interesting way for each of us, I would say, to see. I have like 5 services, and just spar each of the services and see what can it improve, how can it improve, what is the benefit of it, and don't use it as a standalone, because that again is probably still a tiny bit early for the market. At least that's my experience with the inertia I mentioned. It's a horrible word, but that's what it is. And I think combining it with other services you provide, this could be really a door opener in a different manner.
Absolutely, 100%. And so thanks so much for joining us. I hope that the rest of your time there in Israel is good. And we'll catch up with you in the community in the future.
Yeah, near future, as I hope. It should be back to normal again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Cheers, Thor.
Thank you. Cheers, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So great chatting to Thor there. And it is so true that the EXO model is a tool which can be leveraged together with so many others. We have many community members that are using, EXO together with the design thinking, EXO together with the scaling up methodology, EXO together with foresight. And so it is a really great tool. So if you're interested in leveraging EXO, come over, join the community, learn more about it. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and we'll see you again next week.